This is the June 2012 Unit 1 paper, Statistics and Probability. Question 1 is your standard probability question. Sandy has a four-sided spinner. The sides of the spinner labelled A, B, C and D. The spinner is biased. That means they don't all have an equal chance of happening. The table shows the probability the spinner will land on A or B or C. So A's got a probability of 0.15. B 0.32, C 0.27, D we don't know. What we do know is probabilities always add up to 1. So work out the probability the spinner will land on D. Well, we know they all have to add up to 1. If I do 0.15 and the 0.32 and the 0.27, that gives me 0.74. So in order to find the one that's not there, I'll do 1, take away 0.74, this is a calculator paper, and that will end up giving you 0.26. And that's what the probability is, 0.26. It's a 2-mark question. You get 1 mark for showing the takeaway, and you get 1 mark for the final answer. Part 2 says Sandy spins the spinner 300 times. Work out an estimate for the number of times the spinner will land on A. So there's A. It's got a probability of 0.15. So 0.15. And she spins it 300 times. So I've got to times by 300. 300 times of 0.15. 0.15 times by 300 is 45. So if she spins it 300 times, she can expect it to land on the letter A 45 times. And that's a 2-marker again. M1 for showing your times in them together. A1 for getting the right answer. Question 2 is an exchange rate question. Stacey went to the theatre in Paris. Her ticket cost €96. The exchange rate was £1 is equal to €1.20. Work out the cost of her theatre ticket in pounds. So we know it was €96. In order to get to pounds, I need to divide by that 120. And it's a calculator paper, and it equals £80. It's a 2-marker. You get 1 mark for showing that you're dividing the exchange rate. You get the 2nd mark for getting the answer correct. The next part, Stacey bought a handbag in Paris, which cost €64.80. In Manchester, the same type of handbag cost £52.50. The exchange rate was £1 is €1.20. Compare the cost of the handbag in Paris with the cost of the handbag in Manchester. So I'm comparing Paris to Manchester. So in Paris, it's €64.80, and in Manchester, it was £52.50. I've got 2 options here. I can either convert this price into euros and compare, or I can convert the euros into pounds and then compare those two. So I always recommend going from pounds into the other currency, because that is just the multiplying. I mean, it's no difference the other way, you just divide, but this seems more logical to me. So £52.50 times by 120 equals €63. So there I can see in Manchester it would cost €63, Paris €64.80. So I can say Manchester is cheaper as it costs €63. Let me zoom out. As it costs €63 compared to €64.80 in Paris. Now, if you did decide to convert from euros into pounds, all you would do there is divide by the 120, and that would give you a price of £54. So you would then have the comparison of Paris is more expensive because it's £54 compared to Manchester. You may also have mentioned in your explanation the fact that they've got a difference of €1.80 or the difference in pounds, but that's not necessarily recommended unless you want to add it in there. Mark scheme for this is a 3 marker. You get 1 mark for showing your conversion between whichever one you choose. So you get 1 mark for the conversion. You must include whatever sign you're converting to. So I have to say that that is euros, and I had to say that that is pounds. You get an answer mark for getting to either 63 euros or 54 pounds. And then you get a communication mark for mentioning your figures in the comparison. Okay, you have to mention your figures. Question 3 is a scattergraph question, and the scattergraph shows the information about the ages and values of 7 Varley motor scooters. There's your scattergraph, value and age. Another Varley motor scooter is aged 5 years old. It has a value of £300. Show this information on the scattergraph. 5 years old, value of £300. Now you can see here that the scale, there is no 300. If I zoom in, you can see it goes from 0 to 500, and it gets there in 10 little increments. So to find out what each one is worth, I would do 500 divided by 10, which would give me 50. So each one of these little lines is 50. So that's 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400, 450, 500. So 300 is going to be 1, 2, 3. There. So I need to go across now to 5. So 5 years and £300. That's 1 mark. Part B wants you to describe the relationship between the age and the value of Varley motor scooters. So just to do that, I'm going to put in a line of best fit, and I'm going to try and get this to go between all of the crosses. I'm going to do it there, I think. So that's my line of best fit. Describe the relationship. Well, it's downhill, so it's negative correlation. And the word correlation is important. The word negative doesn't mean an awful lot without the word correlation. So to get a mark, you would need to say negative correlation. And if you were to go into further detail about the relationship, then the relationship is as the age increases, the value decreases. So the greater the age, the less the value. That's worth 1 mark. A Varley motor scooter is 4 years old. Estimate its value. So it's 4 years old. I need to take my ruler and I need to go up to the line and bounce it off to read that value. And it comes out there, so 50, 500, 550, 600. So I'm going to use my value as 600. It's a 2 mark question. 1 mark is for showing that you've put the line of best fit in and you're using it. So even if you don't get an answer within an acceptable range, you get a mark for showing that you're using your line of best fit from the age of 4 years. And the acceptable range according to the mark scheme is 500 up to 800. So you get a mark if you're anywhere in between that. Question 4 is your price comparison best value question. Pete and Sue are going to take their children to France. They'll travel together on the same ferry. They will travel with 1 or 2 ferry companies, Easy Ferry or Sea Wagon. The tables give information about the costs for each adult and each child to travel with these ferry companies. And there's the tables. The table below gives information about the discount they will get from each ferry if they book early. So there's an early discount. Pete and Sue have 3 children. That's important there. Pete and Sue are 2 adults and they have 3 children. So that's who's going on the trip. I'm going to make a note of that. They will travel on the 25th of July. They will book early. So yes, they get the discount and they travel on the 25th of July. So I'm just going to pick that information out straight away. July the 25th. So it's going to be these two prices and these two prices. Pete and Sue will travel with the cheaper ferry company. Which ferry company is cheaper? Show all your workings. And you've got 2 pages of working out for this. Okay, so what we're ultimately doing is comparing 2 things. The 2 things we're going to be comparing is Easy Ferry Company and Sea Wagon. So first thing I'm going to do is say that I want to find the price of 2 adults. So I've got 2 lots of £39.50. And I've got 3 children at £23.75. So 3 lots of £23.75. That's £79. That's £71.25. I then need to add them together to find the total cost of Easy Ferry, and that gives me a total of £150.25. So that's the total cost without discount. Okay, so without discount. Now I'm going to find my discount. So Easy Ferry gives you 1/3 off. To find 1/3 of something, you divide by 3. So I'm going to do that and divide by 3, which is going to give me £50.25. So what I need to do then is take my £150.25 and I need to take away the £50.25 discount, and that's going to leave me with £100.17. So that's the total cost after discount of going on Easy Ferries. Now let's look at Sea Wagon. So Sea Wagon has 2 adults, and Sea Wagon's adult prices is £40.25. So I've got 2 lots of £40.25. I've got 3 lots of child prices, which is £21.85 there. And 2 lots of that gives me £80.50. 3 lots of that gives me £65.55. I need to total them, so add them together. Make sure you show what you're doing. Don't just put the line there, put the add sign. That gives me a total of £146.05 before any discount. Now let's look at the discount. Sea Wagon gets 25% off. So 25% is 1/4, so you divide by 4. So I'm going to do that. Divided by 4 gives me a discount of £36.51. So let's find the cost after discount by doing £146.05. Take away that £36.51. That leaves me with a total to pay of £109.54. So now I've got my 2 numbers. I can compare them and decide which ferry company should they choose from. So they want the cheapest one. Which is cheaper, £100.17 or £109.54? Well, it's this one. So I'm going to make my statement that Easy Ferry is cheapest, and I'm going to quote my numbers. I'll write that on this page. So they should travel with Easy Ferry because it only costs £117 compared to Sea Wagon, which costs £109.54. And it's a 5-mark question. What you get the marks for is, first of all, doing the multiplications for 2 adults and 3 children. So you don't get the marks twice. You get it for either doing it there or for doing it there. So 2 times the adult price, 3 times the child price. That gets you 1 mark. You then get the second mark by showing you're adding those together to get a total. You then get the third mark for showing that you can find a discount. You get the final answer mark if you've got either of the totals, and then you get a communication mark for showing your conclusion, which must have the names of the ferry companies, the recommendation of which is cheapest, and the cost associated with each ferry company. Number 5 is a stem and leaf diagram question. Jamal plays 15 games of 10-pin bowling. Here are his scores. Draw an ordered stem and leaf diagram to show Jamal's scores. Well, first thing I need to do is look what's the highest and what's the lowest so I can have my stems. So the lowest numbers are in the 50s and my highest numbers 70s, 80s, yeah, so it only goes up to the 80s, so I need 50s, 60s, 70s and 80s. So there are my stems. Now I need my leaves. How many numbers have I got in the 50s? I'm going to circle all the 50s first. That's it for 50. So there's 150 and it's 59. So I put that in. Now I'll circle all my 60s. This way I know I'm not leaving any out. So there are 4 60s, the smallest of which is 63. Then we've got 65. Then we've got 66. And another 66. Then I'll circle my 70s. Lots of 70s. So my lowest 70 is 71. Then I've got 72. Then I've got 75. Then I've got another 75. Then I've got 76. Then I've got 77. Then I've got 2 79s. And then my 80s, there's only 2 of them, 89 and 83. 83 and 89. So that's an ordered stem and leaf diagram. However, at the moment, that's only 2 out of 3 marks. In order to get my third mark, I must have a key. And the key must say 5, 9 equals 59. So that's a 3-mark question. 1 mark for setting up the stem and leaf diagram correctly. The second mark for getting them all ordered. The third mark is for having. Question 5 part B is about using the stem and leaf diagram from part A and comparing the distribution of scores. So Jill plays 15 games of 10-pin bowling. The table gives some information about her scores. So in the previous question, we were dealing with Jamal, who played 15 games. And in part B, we're dealing with Jill, who's also playing 15 games. So the table gives some information about Jill's scores. Compare the distribution of Jamal's scores and the distribution of Jill's scores. Now, the fact that they're telling you to compare the distribution of the scores means that in the end, you're going to have to make reference to the fact that you're dealing with scores. Okay? Now, what we need to do, they've given us that information of Jill's. I need that information of Jamal's. So I'm going to just say there, that's Jill's. And I'm going to put a little head in here for Jamal. And I'm going to extend this just so I can get this exact information for Jamal as well. So I can fill in the highest score of Jamal's by looking at my ordered stem and leaf diagram, because it's this one here, 89, and the lowest is here, 59. So Jamal's highest was 89, Jamal's lowest was 59. For Jamal's mean, there's nothing that's going to tell me that as a shortcut. I have to find the mean by adding all of the scores together and then dividing by the 15 games he played. So I'm going to do that here. I'm going to say Jamal mean equals, and I would do 72 plus 59 plus 75. So I'm going to start that. 72 plus 59 plus 75 plus, and so on. So you would just, on your calculator, add all of those together, and then you're going to divide that by the 15 games he played. So when I've added them all together, that ends up giving me 1,095 divided by the 15 games gives me a mean of 73. So Jamal's mean score was 73. Now, brilliant. I've got all of those to compare. However, they want me to compare the distribution. And whenever you're looking at distribution, if you've got upper and lower quartiles mentioned, then we want to be thinking about the interquartile range, but we don't have that here, so it's good enough just to talk about the range of scores. And in order to find the range, you do the highest, take away the lowest. So I'm going to just pop down here range, and I'm going to do the range for Jill, which is 95 take away 75. So Jill's got a range of 20. And for Jamal, his range is 89 take away 59. Which is 30. So Jill's got a range of 20, Jamal's got a range of 30. Now we can start comparing because we've got all the same numbers. So let's look up here. Jill's highest score was higher. So Jill's score was larger than Jamal's. Jill's lowest score was also larger than Jamal's. And Jill's mean score was also higher than Jamal's. And when we're looking at the range, Jill's range of scores was lower than Jamal's. So let's make some comparisons here. The first comparison I'm going to do is about the mean. And I'm going to say that Jill's mean score, important that I'm using the word score to show that I know what the context of the question is. Jill's mean score was higher than Jamal's mean score. It's the first point I'm making. I'm also then going to say that Jill's range was also smaller than Jamal's range. Oh, and I should have said of scores there. Was smaller than Jill's range of scores. Now, if you didn't go and calculate the mean and you didn't go and find the range, then you just lost a lot of marks there. The fact that it's given you the mean should have prompted you to find the mean. However, if you've just done a comparison of Jill's highest score was higher than Jamal's because it was 95 compared to 89, then you can get 1 mark, I think, for that. So let's have a look at the mark scheme now for this. So the first mark is going to be for showing that you need to find Jamal's mean. So showing an intent to add all of the numbers and then divide by 15. So that gives you your method mark, 1 mark. You then get an answer mark for getting the mean correct, 73. You then get a method mark for showing that you needed to find at least one of the ranges. So if you found one of the ranges, you get a method mark for that. You do not get an answer mark for getting the means correct unless you got the mean wrong. If you didn't find the mean, then you can get an M1 and an A1 for getting the range right. But I got the mean right, so I don't get an extra answer mark. I would then get a communication mark for commenting on the mean score and saying that Jill's was higher. And these are follow-through marks, so even if my calculations are wrong and I came up with the fact that Jamal's numbers were higher than Jill's, and I've said Jamal is higher than Jill's, and I've shown my numbers, I'd still get the communication mark. And then you get a second communication mark for comparing the range. So that's a 5-mark question. Plenty of marks available there, but plenty of places that one could go wrong.